What is up and welcome back. We are your Emerald Coast relocation experts, Pete and Chelsea Sweeney. And right here, we're going to be digging into the pros and cons of Fort Walton Beach.
All right, let's go.
The first pro that we're going to be talking about in regards to Fort Walton Beach is there's schools there. And this is in Okaloosa County, which is actually rated an A- on niche.com. If you ever are wanting to dive in kind of the grades that's going through a few of these schools, I highly recommend going out and checking out niche.com. We've even broken it down to a few of the highest rated schools on niche.com in regards to the gradings. And so you got your pre-K, which is like the Okaloosa STEM school there.
Okaloosa or Okaloosa?
Okaloosa. Guys, we're from Colorado. We try our best,
Right.
Okay? We know sometimes it's pronounced differently, but so that's rated an A. One of the highest rated elementary schools over there is the Lisa Jackson, which is also rated an A according to niche.com.
Yeah, so if you take it over to middle school, those two schools also are the highest rated for the middle school as well, so it must be combined. And then if you take it over to the high school, I couldn't choose just one because they actually have an A+ rated high school, which is going to be a collegiate high school at the Northwest Florida State College. And I had to put that in there because it's an A+, but also if you're looking at Fort Walton Beach High School, you're also going to be at an A. So I don't think you can really go wrong when it comes to education here.
Well, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, for us personally, this is why we chose the Panhandle.
Yes.
We were looking all over Florida. We were like, God, where do we go?
Yeah.
We couldn't find great schools. And then we found the Emerald Coast. It seems like the entire area, whether you're talking about Okaloosa County or even like Santa Rosa County, which is just farther west in the Emerald Coast, they all have amazing schools. And that's where, like, yeah, this is the place for us. This is why we decided to choose the Emerald Coast.
Yeah, when we were looking, I guess it was in around 2020, we were looking to move to Florida, and we actually have property down outside Clearwater. We could not find schools that were even close to the ratings that we were looking for.
Yeah.
The other thing too, just to give you an idea, in Colorado, you have to do private school to really get the same type of education, and we were paying about $750 for one kid a month. And
Yeah.
so being able to go to an area and have such great options on schools, and then for them to be public, it kind of blew our mind.
The second pro that we're going to be covering in regards to Fort Walton Beach is the fact that you have so many amazing beaches nearby. So obviously we're looking at Okaloosa Island. You also have Fort Walton Beach, but you have, Destin right over there, right?
Yes.
And this is where Fort Walton kind of like became popular because everyone traveled to Destin like, what's this place called Fort Walton Beach?
Right.
You could also go west over to Navarre Beach, and a little bit further you go over to Pensacola Beach. You have amazing beaches. This is why the Emerald Coast is so awesome.
Yeah, and not only just the beach, the good thing about how all of this is arranged, which is something we had to learn, is that usually you have, your land, and then you have bodies of water outside of that. So you have the sound, you have the bay sides, so you can have kayaking, you can do fishing, you can do paddleboarding, swimming. Like even in some of these areas there where there's like bay or sound, you'll see little coves in there that you can have kind of a quieter beach that's not going to be necessarily on the Gulf. And so there's just so many options, and no matter what, you can always find something to do, and especially in the water. The third pro of Fort Walton Beach is going to be the cost of living. So to be honest with you, when we were learning about these different areas, Destin was always what we heard about being an outsider. So they're like, oh, Destin this, Destin that. You have to go to Destin. Everything's about Destin. You're like, okay, cool. Like, we're one of those people who are like, we don't want to go where everyone else is going.
Yeah.
So we were like, what other areas outside of Destin are really popular and that give us a little bit less of like the rush of Destin, like all of the tourism?
The whole area has tourism.
Yes.
Destin's like tourism on steroids, right?
Yeah, so what other little cities can you move to that are going to be more affordable, that maybe be more family friendly and not so high in tourism? So Fort Walton definitely shines when it comes to the cost of living, because I looked at cost of living and I was blown away by these numbers, guys, of why you wouldn't live so close to Destin and not have to be in kind of the rush of it all. And so we're going to break it down into cost of living. So tell them a little bit about cost of living index.
Yeah, so how we like to approach these cost of living is we use the cost of living index, where 100 is your national average. If it's below it, then obviously it's cheaper. If it's above it, then it's more expensive than your national average. So what are we looking at overall with Fort Walton Beach? You're looking at a 97.1. Let's compare that over to Destin. You're looking at a 120.9.
Yeah, which is a almost 25% more at Destin. So let's break that down a little bit to understand, like, where are those numbers coming from? Groceries over in Fort Walton are going to be about 100, so really tracking on the national average, where over in Destin it's going to be a 105. When you're looking at other states, this is actually quite a big jump in comparison with groceries. Groceries is one thing that doesn't change very often, or it will like a point or two on the national average grade. Yep. But this, for it to be 5 points up, shows that Destin is quite a bit more expensive than Fort Walton, and we're just a jump away.
I mean, here's something that we've actually experienced. Like, so we have Airbnb properties in kind of all these different tourist areas. We've noticed how the groceries, guess what? They take advantage of that. You have tourists who are coming in, they're like, you only have this option, so we're going to raise the prices just a little bit more. And so that might be a big reason why Destin is a little bit more expensive in regards to your groceries.
Transportation, the good thing about Florida is it's actually really low in comparison to some of the other states. So Fort Walton is going to be at a 90, whereas Destin's going to be at 93. Not a huge difference, but still both below national average, which is awesome.
Now, so here's what blows my mind is a huge part of this transportation cost of living is your public transit.
Yeah.
There really isn't much public transit in and around these cities, whereas like we come somewhere from Colorado where our transportation is so much higher and we have a ton of public transit. And so it's kind of like, what is it? Gas prices potentially, insurance costs, I don't know, but I'm just saying that it's kind of weird how it's lower where somewhere that doesn't have as much public transit as, say, some of these larger cities.
Also, guys, your streets are incredible. Moving to Florida, the streets are amazing. And you don't have the snow or anything like that that's going to, cause all of the sand and the breakdown
all the different
of the
chemicals
roads.
they have to throw to melt the ice and stuff, and then it eventually ends up deteriorating your roads. And
Yes, it's amazing. I cannot tell you, coming from Colorado this last snowstorm that we had down there before we left, there were people who were popping tires in potholes, okay? So Florida roads are incredible, and maybe that has something to do with this transportation cost.
Yep.
Now, we have to go into housing. Obviously, we're your relocation specialists. We always have to touch on housing, but this number blows me away.
Yeah, so much so. So if we're looking at housing, and when we talk about this housing in regards to your cost of living, this also incorporates your rentals. Just kind of throw that out there. Stick around a little bit longer. I am going to dive into your median sales prices, separated into your attached and your detached type of housing. So let's go and talk about that number. Your cost of living index is 81.6 over in Fort Walton as compared to Destin is a 165.8. So that is, what is it, a 99% increase
Mind blown.
in housing, right? And so what does that look like? If I want to purchase a house in Fort Walton, what am I going to be spending as compared to buying a house over in Destin?
All right, now stick around a little longer because we're going to dive into the fourth pro, and that is housing cost. You're going to take us through like a big old breakdown. But real quick before we move on, with the cost of living, we also look at utilities, health, and miscellaneous.
Yep.
I will say on those three topics, Destin and Fort Walton are pretty much neck and neck. So there's not really a huge difference. The good thing is, though, is they're both under national average, which is insane, guys. Coming from these other cities, it's so hard to get below national average in so many different topics. So it's obviously a very affordable, wonderful place to live.
All right, cool, guys. Before we break into the fourth one, if this is content that you are loving, can you do us a huge favor? Hit that subscribe button. Maybe give us a thumbs up. Little notification bell. That way you're notified every single time that we put out a brand new video. Of course, if you are looking at purchasing real estate here in the Emerald Coast today, we're talking about Fort Walton specifically. Give us a call or text on the phone number right below. Right there. Give us a call or text. Doesn't matter date or time. We are there to answer them all.
All right, the fourth pro is going to be the housing costs.
So this is actually what we've seen is like we already mentioned, Destin, it drives a lot of people into the area. People don't necessarily want to live inside of Destin though, and so a lot of them go to Fort Walton since that's one of your closest places on the Emerald Coast. And so the housing is a lot cheaper over there. You don't have quite the tourism as you do say over in Destin. So what are we looking at if you want to buy, let's put everything together. Let's take your single family and your attached, your condo, townhouse, row homes. If we lump that all into one sum, your median sales price is $376. What does that look like in compared to Destin? If we go over to Destin, your median sales price over there, everything lumped into one sum, is $541.
Yeah, which, hello, that is a huge difference being so close in cities.
All right, now let's break into your single family. If you are looking at purchasing that single family product over in Fort Walton, you got a median sales price of $345,000. Hop over to Destin. If you're looking at buying that single family product, you're looking at a median sales price of $570,000.
Now, if we break that down into the attached, so you're talking about your condos, your townhouse, your row homes. In Fort Walton, it's going to be $480,000. Jump over to Destin, it's going to be $506,000. Guys, these are huge differences for being two cities so close together.
Now, you might be wondering, okay, that last number that we talked about, you're attached.
Right.
Why isn't it as far apart? And that's because you have a lot of these kind of tourist, or I guess I wouldn't say short term, because some of them do limit short term, but more of your vacation style properties where you do have condos. And guess what? They are still going for a pretty penny because you have them right there on the overlooking the beach, overlooking the water. And so that's why that product isn't spread apart as much as, say, your single family homes.
All right, we just gave you 4 pros. Let's go ahead and dive into those cons. So you've heard Peter and I kind of talk throughout this video that there's not as much tourism as, say, Destin. However, this is still a huge con. It still affects Fort Walton quite a bit. And the reason is that anytime there are high seasons, or people are leaving other states to be able to come to the beach, you're going to have this really high demand on the beaches, and it's gonna be really crowded. You're gonna have increased traffic. We've actually heard a lot of the locals in Fort Walton Beach say, hey, we actually stay in the pools, or we go to the bay, or we go to the Sound to actually get some of the water sports in, because the beaches get really crowded during the tourism season.
So with that tourism kind of coming into Fort Walton, like I said, even though it's not as bad as Destin, still expect the fact that those favorite restaurants, those favorite places that you like to go when you're in off season might be a little bit more crowded, because you have so many people who are coming to the city during those hot seasons during the tourism time. The second con that we're going to be talking about is the limited job opportunities. Pre-COVID, I'd say this is a huge deal. Now, just like anyone like us, we can remote pretty much anywhere we go.
True.
And so I wouldn't say this is that big of a con, but if you are looking to get a job within Fort Walton, it's pretty limited to pretty much hospitality, military, defense contracts, stuff like that. You're not going to find too many jobs, like let's say like the tech sector or anything like that, unless you are working more remote.
Now, also, if you have, teenagers or things like that, getting a local job, right? You're starting that new job, you're bringing your whole family there. So one thing to keep in mind is that the minimum wage in Florida right now is $11 per hour. And if you go over to Fort Walton, it's actually $8.65. So I'm not gonna lie, guys, I made $8 when I was in high school. So this is definitely a pretty low minimum wage, especially in comparison to some of our bigger states and cities. What is Colorado now? It's like 15 or something crazy. It's ridiculous. I'm not saying we in Florida need to be in that direction at all. I'm just saying it's something to consider. Now, cost of living in Florida is a little bit low as well. So it is directly correlated. And I do think that, our kids are still able to make a good living. It's just something to note that is actually lower than the state.
The third con that we're going to be talking about is the fact that there is no Costco. And by that's my biggest con of being there. It's
Costco.
Sorry, Costco. We were used to where we came from. Costco was like 5 minutes away either direction, and it's like we had Costco whatever we had to. Now they do have a Sam's Club in Fort Walton. They have your Walmart, but they are limited when we're talking about both your shopping and your entertainment activities that you could do within the city. And I'm going to put a little note out there that this is actually the Emerald Coast in general, right? When you don't have a super large city like Tallahassee or even like Mobile, because you have to go up to Mobile for the Costco. I know.
He's like, I know where the Costco lives. It's in Mobile.
I have to drive an hour and 45 minutes over to Costco. I'm just saying that you are a little bit limited. If you're used to coming from a larger city where you do have pretty much limitless on the amenities, you're not going to find that in Fort Walton.
Yeah, and this is not to say that they do not have activities. So this is kind of one of those cons where I'm going to kind of back it up with a pro, because I love this about Fort Walton.
Go to the beach, right? Go to the beach.
You have free entertainment right on the beach. So if you're looking for that big metropolitan area with all these different events and arts and culture, it might be lacking that. If you're looking for a beach vibe, lifestyle, and culture, you're good to go. So I don't think that there is necessarily no culture and no activities. It's lacking in comparison to some of the bigger, larger cities surrounding it.
I mean, it's something that I personally love. It's beach life, right?
Beach life.
It's
beach
so
bum.
simple, and it's just brings so much less stress into your life. You're not having to worry about these freaking suit and tie galas having to go to every weekend and stuff.
I like those galas.
I'd rather rock some flip flops and shorts. That's just my personal preference, right? And so I think it's amazing that they don't have all those distractions that we have in these larger cities coming from a larger city.
Yeah, it's honestly some really wholesome fun, especially families, like all of us just getting out there, and it's just a very low-key vibe, and you don't have to go searching for things to do, just go to the beach.
Yep.
Okay, the fourth con, and the one that we were the most worried about when moving to Florida, is going to be the heat and humidity.
Yeah, guys, we're coming from Denver, where we're 5,280 feet above sea level, super dry up there. Humidity is pretty much non-existent, right?
Yeah, we have none.
Yeah, and so we go there, and I remember the first time that we really experienced this summertime heat down in Florida. We were down in Clearwater. It felt like a blow dryer. It was straight to my face and all this stuff. I will say you do start to acclimate to it more than just getting rushed into it from somewhere else. It's just humidity wasn't something that we're used to.
Yeah.
Many times when we are bringing people down from different states who are a little bit more dry, they do complain about that humidity, because even 90 degrees and say somewhere like Florida where it's humid, as opposed to somewhere like Colorado where it's not, it feels so much different. It seems so much hotter because of that humidity.
Now, there's some things that don't adapt to the humidity, like your hair. Okay? I have naturally curly hair. My hair is up in a bun today because it is hot outside, and I don't want it all over my face and don't want to have like this
She looks like a lioness. She's
like a lion mane by the time I go outside. So sometimes I have to just wet it, put it up in a bun.
Yep.
Not everybody has this, issue, but I will say that, wearing your makeup, like we used to be able to cake it on in dry seasons, you know what I mean? Like out there, it kind of feels like you're taking a shower all day long. So when we're here on the beach in the middle of summer, like, you might just have to go a little bit more natural and rock the hair or put it up or whatever, because it is hot. It's really helpful to have a pool. It's helpful to get outside into the water. You're going to have AC a lot. We don't have heaters like we did back in Colorado. Like we don't have to worry too much about the heat as much as you do your air conditioning and be able to tuck away into some of the cool. We go to the restaurants a lot when we get really hot. Yep. We'll be like, oh, you know what? We're burning up. It's time to go to the restaurant. Yep. So you do adapt, and it is wonderful because you can do things all year long because it is hot and it is beautiful, and so you can do more outside activities versus where we came from. In Colorado, you would like lock yourself away for like several months, and it was just like kind of sad a little bit. Whereas here, like we have the heat, and you can go do things all year long. Yep. But if you're not used to it, prepare because it's going to be like.
Oh yeah, no, I was not used to it. Like I said, I was showering like 3 times a day when we first came here. Now I'm down to like 1.5, 2, but it's just like it depends on how active I am outside and stuff. It's just the humidity. It's just so much different when you're used to a dry climate. So if you are coming from a dry climate, or even somewhere that doesn't have a ton of humidity, just know it's something that you're gonna have to get used to while being down here.
All right, we have covered 4 different pros, 4 different cons. I'm sure there are many more of these areas, so any of you other locals out there, comment down below. If you have any questions because you're looking to move into Fort Walton, please let us know. We do these videos for you.
And of course, guys, if you are looking at purchasing real estate here in the free state of Florida, give us a call or text the phone number right below right there. We answer. It doesn't matter day or time. And until next time, we love you. Bye.
Bye.